Cornelia, I've
Mhm.
been compiling peer-reviewed studies, and I'm going to write a letter to the president because I seen a post that he did last week where he's telling people that he wants to know about if the vaccine was a success or not. Did you see that?
Yes, I did.
And plus he said, well, if this vaccine is no good, I'll be the first one to tell you. He said that too.
Yeah, I mean, well, is he going to be the last one to figure it out?
Yeah.
I mean, that was such a weird tweet,
Yeah.
weird post that he sent. I mean, yeah, and a lot of people were really happy about it. I was first happy about it, but then I thought the whole thing is so absurd. He cannot possibly telling the truth here. Of course, I mean, if he wants to know, he can know. He probably knows way more than he tells us in this post. So that was very strange. But certainly it's a signal that his public stance on warp speed is changing. So that's a good sign.
Yeah. So I'm going to write him a letter because if anybody but me, the person that took the most deadly shot out of them all, and if CICP claim can't clearly see that I was injured by these 4 shots,
I know.
that's an issue. Because I have everything that the peer-reviewed studies minus the myocarditis. But, my heart already is doing other things. I've got bradycardia and tachycardia that I've never had.
I've heard that a lot of people have these heart arrhythmias now because of the shots.
Yeah.
Another really serious injury. Melanie, what did you think when you saw this tweet by Trump?
I'm going to write him a letter and I'm going to submit all this because what's his name's got that new data out for these peer-reviewed studies. The McCullough Foundation has been
yes
all their new stuff. So I'm going to print all the studies, and I've got notes and notes and notes of stuff that I've just captured, and I'll include my VAERS report, and I'm going to write a letter to the president.
Albert is back.
Hi, Cornelia. Hi, Melanie. Thanks for having us back.
So we'll dive back into the vaccine's adverse event reporting system called VAERS that we talked about a while ago. But this time, Albert is going to show us what he has done with VAERS, with the VAERS data, to get closer to the truth that VAERS is trying to hide, namely how many people have been harmed by the COVID mRNA shots and how many of those shots caused people to die. And he will show us what he did with these chaotic and incomplete data in VAERS, how he analyzed them, how he organizes them on his own website, VAERSaware. And we'll see what this data tells us about the harm the shots have done. And he will also highlight Melanie's case in particular, because Melanie suffered horrific injuries from the shots, and Albert describes her case as his capstone case. And we are going to find out why that is. So the floor is all yours, Albert.
Well, thank you for having me. This is somewhat of perfect timing because Children's Health Defense just recently published a new article by journalist and writer Michael Navardakis, and I was quoted in there, and it about the children's deaths in VAERS, and I thought that was a good place to start. So if you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen and we'll take a look at the Children's Health Defense article and then do my deep dive from there. Okay, so it's this main one right here. The FDA conducting intense investigations of child deaths following the COVID shots. And this had to do with Marty Makary, Dr. Marty Makary, head of the FDA, that recently basically threw some shade on the CDC. And you'll see that a few people were quoted. Dr. McCullough is saying that the investigation is very late, but should be done, and they should also examine the adults post-vaccination. Here is the part here where they're saying currently there's 202 death reports for kids basically under 18. I wanted to start there in their audit because this was actually the audit that I did with React 19. and kind of weave Melanie's story into this. They had over 100 people that basically said either they couldn't find their report or that somebody else was in their ID number that they were given. And it's this one, the deleted VAERS IDs. This is kind of a new graph for them, but I want to go to the original VAERS analysis that I did with them, and I find it here.
Albert, just say a few words about what React 19 is for those who might not have heard about this organization.
React 19 was co-founded with Bree Dressen and a physician doctor who were both vaccine injured. So this is a now become a community of, I believe, like 30,000 people, I think, about that much, where they are sharing their stories. And React 19, through a nonprofit, have been able to raise funds to help out the vax injured. So I think they've even gave more money than the vaccine injury court. So they actually award people some money to pay a little bit of bills and whatnot.
Right, because the CICP is pretty useless program and it hasn't paid out. It usually, like 99% of cases are not getting anything.
Right.
And even the cases that get something, it's usually just a pitiful amount.
Right. So here is it was Joel Walskog, Dr. Joel Walskog, who is also the co-founder with Bree Dressen. But originally, we did this report, and there it is, 126 of their React 19 members. And after we dove in to see those people that were saying somebody else is in my ID, when I looked at it, I realized, oh my gosh, they were given their temporary ID number, and they were under the impression that that was their final ID number. They didn't know the difference. And when they went back at a later date to, look at their report, they realized, the person being described in this report was somebody else. That's when I realized, oh my God, they don't have their final ID number. I was able to either find their ID number, just searching the characteristics, their age, gender, location, vax date, all those clues, and retrieve their report, or possibly like 3 or 4 reports that would fit their description. And then the actual participant in this study would read those 4 reports and go, oh, this one is me. I know this one is me, based on, the summary narrative write-up or the medications or the previous vax, all that stuff. They realized this one is me. So they're
go
ahead.
Albert, that must have been a huge amount of work just figuring this out.
Oh yeah,
painstakingly for every single one, right?
It was a lot of work. There were a few people that I found in the deleted reports section that I keep track of all the reports that are deleted after publication. And then coming back to them and saying, well, the participants weren't aware that their report was published and then subsequently deleted after that. So
why would it get deleted?
Well, okay, so it's the CDC, it's the CDC and FDA that can delete reports after publication if they find out later after the fact that the report was in fact a duplicate or a fake or false report. Now, that's kind of like their ultimate safety net, because in the initial adjudication phase that they, at least by guidelines and standard operating procedures, they tell us, the public, that they have up to 4 to 6 weeks to adjudicate an incoming report to make sure it's not fake, false, or duplicate, and then either never publish it because it's a duplicate, something like that, or finalize it and publish it. So they're supposed to do all of that in the first 4 to 6 weeks before they even publish it for the first time. But, that's stuff doesn't work out quite like that. And they may have to delete a report after they've already published it. Now, this is the devil in the details. Okay, fine. I agree with that. I don't want duplicate or fake or false reports in the data, but to also then go and delete over 40,000 reports after publication, that's where I start to have a problem. I say, what kind of clown show are we running here? That is way too many reports to be deleting after publication. And when I look at those deleted reports, I've looked at 2,000 of them individually, going back to give them the benefit of the doubt that, okay, I'm going to assume that this is a duplicate, then surely I should be able to find the live twin in the live data. And I could only find like 2% of the 2,000 people that I looked for that actually were like, I could say, okay, this is a legitimate duplicate. The others I could not find. And it's questionable because they look, a lot of them are very professionally written. It says submitted by a contactable physician or a healthcare provider. Sometimes it was like something really unique, like a 31-year-old female who died in the state of Maine. And then I look for, a 31-year-old female who died in the state of Maine. And I can't even find a 31-year-old female, who died, let alone whatever month they died in or were vaxxed in. So they're like, to say there's no 31-year-old females that died in the state of Maine, period, yet there's one that's deleted. So, I really question. I'll just come out and say it, that I think that they're also deleting legitimate reports. But that's what this that's what this React 19 thing has to do about. We found 12%.
They found 12% of the deleted reports. So I have a question about that. But first, I want to say how interesting this chart is, because it says that according to this chart by that React 19 put together, only 61% of the reports are proper reports with a permanent ID, and they are visible in the public VAERS system. So when you go to VAERS or to that would be the Wunda website, I guess, where you would go to dig into their data, correct?
Yes.
You would actually see only these 61%. Only those would be there, correct?
Yeah. And that was based on the 120 people or so that 126 people that actually, had never seen their report or wondered where their report went. Like maybe they saw it once and then they couldn't find it anymore.
Okay.
Or they were given an ID, but then when they checked it out with the ID given, it was somebody else. So that's
okay.
Yeah.
And then there were reports without permanent IDs. For whatever reason, I don't know why they don't have a permanent ID, but these are not in the public VAERS system. So first of all, why did they never get a permanent ID? And then if they're not in the public VAERS system, is there any way of finding them somewhere else?
Well, so this is where this right here, the 22% is the one that I want to focus on, because basically these are reports that are submitted but were never published. Legitimate reports submitted but were never published, including Bree Dressen's report, who she filed a report and her report was never published. And some of these people were in basically the phone tree of CDC. Like they called and said, hey, where can I get my ID number, my final ID number? I can't find my report. And here's my temporary ID to authenticate that this is me, that we submitted it or my doctor submitted it. That's the purpose and the power of having the temporary ID, because it authenticates yourself to the VAERS people. So they know that they're dealing, with HIPAA laws and releasing information. They know that they're able to discuss these matters with you because you've produced this temporary ID that's unique. Nobody has it but the submitter. So this is where, you could also say people could not file due to system errors. So there was just a handful of people that, they actually never successfully submitted the report as we determined or deduced, because we're like, well, where's your, what's your temporary ID? I don't know. My doctor has it. Well, can you get it? Well, can you? So it was kind of like this endless loop, like, well, we don't really know that they submitted it fully if we don't even have their temporary ID number. And then it's a pain in the butt. If you call up CDC in that state, like, hey, I submitted my report, I'm Sally Mae, and I don't even know my temporary ID number, you're going to really get lost in the phone tree. They're not going to help you at all. So that's this 5%. Let me just wrap this up. So and then of the people that we found, this was, in the deleted reports, of the deleted reports, which were 15 total reports, React 19 is saying, well, 53% were permanent disability, 20% were ER hospital, and 27% were ER hospital, and 20% were all the rest, non-serious, like office visits and things of that nature. These people with office visits, as an example, myocarditis, there's a ton of people with myocarditis that are sitting in the not serious office visit level, because many times myocarditis does not rise to the level of a defined ER emergency or inpatient hospital stay. A lot of that stuff is clinically diagnosed with the diagnostic imaging or x-rays, MRIs. So that's just to say, I don't want to discount these technically non-serious, but they are serious, but just by VAERS' simple definition of what a serious report is anything from a hospitalization or higher. So anyways, I'm going to jump out of there, and just to show you, we're back at the Children's Health Defense. This is what the article reference was, this React 19. And they said, now it makes sense where you say the injuries found that 1 in 3 reports were not posted publicly or deleted. Okay, were not posted publicly is so important. That means that VAERS does not publish all legitimate reports received. And that is huge. That makes all these other, to me, in my mind, that makes all these other PRR studies and p-values and hot lots, it almost makes everything else a moot point if we know that we're basically analyzing curated data, and that VAERS basically does not publish all legitimate reports received.
How sure can we be that it really is 1 in 3 COVID-19 vaccine advance reports that we don't see? I mean, maybe it's more.
Right. And see, this is the thing. React 19 found 1 in 3. Well, that 1 in 3 was basically based out of 126 people that wanted to report. Not to say that 1 in 3 of 2 million people that ever submitted reports. So this is, you got to please take it in context that this was basically 1 in 3 people that, yes, were the deleted people that I showed you, and the other 22% of that reports were just not published. But I will go further to make my claim that there are definitely at least 50,000 reports that I believe that have never been published. But okay, so we get into the dead children, and basically the big gotcha in my mind of this whole little article here was that I'm basically saying, of those 200 official dead kids that are officially in there, there's actually 600 dead kids. But you don't see them because the age field is not populated. But yet the age is properly documented in the summary narrative. So then more than 400 of these actual dead kids are sitting in a bucket of, unknown ages. But if you're able to, ethically cleanse the data and model the data and populate the age field like I do at VAERSaware.com, you will see that there's basically double the amount of dead kids, or triple the amount, whatever you want to say, from 200 to 600. So Cornelia, have you heard Bobby at my church saying that he spoke with VAERS adjudicators and they told him that 150,000 reports were deleted from the adjudicators' queues, meaning they were not published?
I think you mentioned that during the last interview.
On June 19th of 2022, Bobby came to our church, and he's only said it once. I've never heard him say it again. But that the week previous, he had met with a group of VAERS adjudicators who came to him as a group and collectively told him that 150,000 reports had disappeared from their queues. And these were all reports that they were working on to adjudicate, to finalize and publish.
And I'll just tell you one story about how I was on a Zoom call this week with a bunch of people who work in the VAERS system, people who work either at CDC or they're part of the VAERS system. And what they said to me, and these are people who are doing this, is that every week there were 10 deaths disappearing from the system that were reported, and now there's at least 10 a day disappearing. So they're reported and they're disappearing. And they say not only deaths, but injuries, that 150,000 injuries have been dropped from the system. These are people within the system, but even when the system was working, it captures fewer than 1% of vaccine injuries.
This is in line with what we're saying that, React 19 has people that have published reports and have submitted reports and have never been published. And I have chain of custody of that group of 12 and 8 others for a total of 20 people that I know of with their temporary IDs as backup that their reports have never, ever been published.
Albert, can I come back to the adjudicators that talked to Bobby Kennedy? Were these whistleblowers?
No, not formal whistleblowers, because they never came out and grabbed whistleblower status, in the sense that we've never, outside of this one statement that Bobby made almost in passing at our church, he's never repeated it again, which I don't understand why. I put that 1 minute clip as my pinned tweet on my X, and I speak about it all the time, and I'm backing up what Bobby says. And this is where I get into this spreadsheet where I have 85 people all together, where I'm charting their temporary ID number and their final ID number. And this is where I say Melanie is the capstone of this report. And what I'm seeing is that the longer we go out, there's a larger and larger variance that is growing. And it should not grow like that. It should be like a constant variance between these temporary IDs on the bottom and these final IDs on the top.
Right. Albert, explain to the people who are not going to watch the interview, but just listen to the interview, what they see on the screen. But before you do that, I wanted to just ask you another question about these adjudicators, because that is so shocking what they said. They said that 150,000, right? 150,000 reports disappeared from the VAERS system, and there was a group of them. So it wasn't just one person saying, there was a group of people. And they were shocked enough about this event that they went to your church to talk to Robert Kennedy about this, correct?
Yes.
So, 150,000 records, and they say they just disappeared. Did they have any clue? So obviously it wasn't them who deleted them. So who deleted these records? Did they have any clue what happened to these records?
No. I have to take it in context of what Bobby said, and he was very quick and efficient with this assertion, and disappeared was the word that he used. He didn't use any other word but disappeared. Now, in my mind, and being an expert kind of student of VAERS, I'd say, well, okay, where did they disappear upstairs to General Dynamics, who was also involved at this time around June 19th? They were firmly involved. Did they go to some other adjudicators and how do you know that these reports weren't published at a later date? They just simply disappear. But, I've based on my analysis and even what I'm showing you on the screen is that I corroborate what Bobby says, that yes, there is definitely, based on the amount of reports that have been submitted, and I could see the amount of reports that have been submitted based on the temporary ID numbers, because you have to talk about the ID number just by itself. It's very rudimentary, the ID number. It's very simple. It's all numeric, and it increases by an increment of 1. There's no alpha letters in it. There's nothing. So this is where you get a sense, like me, my uncle, when I filed his own report, I got a temporary ID of basically 467. That's basically like saying this is the 467,000th report that was submitted to VAERS, more or less.
Since VAERS was created.
Yeah. Now,
since VAERS was created, correct?
Absolutely. And then this is actually dates down here that will tell you. It's kind of mushed together, but it was May of 2021. But I have to say, okay, all the foreign reports do not participate in these temporary ID schema things. So you have to exclude all the foreign reports. And if you are a hospital or a large organization, county or state level you have the ability to submit reports in batches. You don't sit there one by one and submit reports. You sign up for it. I've seen the sign up sheet. Anybody can see that if you're an organization that has the need to submit VAERS reports in batches. So those people do not participate in this schema. So this is basically, friends and family and doctors, single standalone offices that would submit one report at a time. But I figured out a way to find which ones these possibly are, which reports. And it's because of the specific field in the VAERS report called the split type. And that's where the manufacturer, when they auto crosswalk reports directly to VAERS, they put a manufacturer timestamp. So those reports do not participate in this schema. So for all these various reasons, I can see, okay, this was the 467,000th report that was submitted by a friend or family or a small office visit, so to speak, from 1990. I have about 85 people with chain of custody. Most of these people are the 126. Most of them are the React 19. Large group of them are this nurse out of Ohio that I connected with, and she's like Deb Conrad, where Deb Conrad submitted like 300 VAERS reports. There's another nurse in Ohio that ended up submitting like 80 reports by herself and received a lot of heat for that. But as I see how many reports, like when I get to Melanie's, and Melanie's was the last report that I've submitted. All these people right here in the yellow, I've helped submit their reports. Even Alexis Lorenz's report. That's why I have their temporary IDs. Julie Threet's mom, who passed away, helped her file it. Another one of my buddies that he didn't have anything wrong. I just needed somebody I said, did you get the shot? Did it feel like a bee sting? Okay, can I submit your report and say that it, all good, but it felt like a bee sting? Yeah, because I had my own ulterior motives. I wanted to see what the temporary ID number was going to be. Well, basically I think, Cornelia, the question was, how do we know that these reports were not published? Apart from Bobby Kennedy saying that these reports disappeared, and that was the word that he used, disappeared.
Out of the queue,
and
he said.
That doesn't mean deleted. That doesn't mean thrown away. That doesn't mean never published. It just means that they were removed from the adjudicators' queues and maybe some other high-level adjudicators took over, like General Dynamics, and they went to publish it later. I have to, put that disclaimer out there. However, with all my calculations, and I was showing with explaining temporary IDs, that's why I took the time to explain temporary IDs and final IDs in my analysis, and how Melanie is the capstone of this 4-year analysis, because she's like the 85th person that I have as chain of custody, knowing what their temporary ID is and what their final ID is, and to see the discrepancy or the variance, to say, hey, there should be more reports published in VAERS outside and separate to what Bobby's saying. But because Bobby said it, he's got no reason to lie at my church, and I've got no reason. I'm just calling balls and strikes. I see the same thing of this discrepancy, and all the ID numbers in between the smallest ID to the largest ID till today, all the ID numbers that have never been published, which is a big distinction between ID numbers that have been published and then deleted out of public view. There's a group of about 50,000 ID numbers, maybe like 40,000 ID numbers. I got to look at the exact stats, but these are ID numbers that have never, ever been published at all. What happened to those? How many
Right.
are hiding in, behind those numbers?
So, Albert, I suggest you go back and share your screen, and then just to put all these data into context, the numbers into context, give us an overview on VAERSaware, how many people have been harmed by the shots, how many reports were, or about, that were submitted, and how they distributed, what harms, how many deaths, how many children, and etc.
Okay, let me start by sharing my screen, and then we'll jump into to VAERSaware. I was showing you just this last update on Friday, the amount of total VAERS reports, all vax types, not just COVID-19, over 4,000 reports with 87 total deaths, and not just COVID deaths, but most of them were COVID, but there are some other non-COVID vax type deaths in there. VAERS updates once a month nowadays. So they just gave us 1,000 reports, supposed new reports. They also, right here, Cornelia, deleted cases. They also deleted 39 cases.
Wow.
7 of those were death. Now, at face value, because they don't give an explanation of why they deleted it, at face value, you have to say, well, they're allowed to delete it because they were duplicate or fake or false reports.
And how many of these new 4,000 and some cases are COVID, mRNA COVID shot cases?
Okay, so I'd have to go into my dashboard to see you can kind of see it right here. Here's COVID. There's actually a COVID bivalence. There's still a few of those coming in, but right here it's telling me COVID, a little under 1,000, 25% of the 4,000 were COVID reports.
25%. And how many percent of the deaths, the 87 deaths?
Most, almost all of them.
Almost all of them.
Yeah.
So that means 25% of 4,000, let's say it's 1,000, and you have 87 deaths within these 1,000. So that's a high. That's like 8%.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
a huge. That's a large number.
And here is let me just jump down a little. We get VAERS reports from China.
No.
We
From
actually
China?
get VAERS reports from China, believe it or not. You can actually see it right here, China.
Who is
Yeah.
sending those?
China.
Do you
I don't know.
who
I
and
mean,
who
we don't know
Yeah.
who's sending them from China, what hospital, what, it's just like all the other countries. We don't know. Can only get down to the country.
But okay, I don't even see any other countries. Oh yeah, there's Japan. You get quite a few from Japan, Australia.
Yeah.
I don't see any other countries. And then
That's
China.
a
No,
lot
that's
in the United
bizarre.
Kingdom.
Well, this in my live, you could use this menu bar to keep scrolling down. So I'm not showing you every state and country. Unfortunately, it's just it's from my Substack, but I could show you in the live interactive dashboard. But there are more.
Yeah. Why
countries.
don't you do that? That's
Okay.
very interesting.
Okay.
You can switch over to you.
I did want to just show you this real quick, just a couple things, just so that you're familiarize yourself when I do jump into the dashboard. But this is a sample of where by ages, you can see it's kind of like my heat map where I give you the age category bucket, so to speak, and then the gender, female, male, or unknown. And initially they're saying, now this goes back to the Children's Health Defense article. They're telling us that there's 1,600 reports of those 4,000 reports where the age is unknown. But I go in, and that's what I've been doing from between Friday and today, dynamically using Python probability tools and scraping and figuring out, reading the reports to say, no, I've actually got it down to only 1,100 reports that I couldn't find. So over 500 reports that I actually found the age properly documented in the narrative, and then I went and plugged it in the right, gave them the right age and category.
And just to put this into context, I mean, first of all, age should be a mandatory field on this VAERS report form when you submit your report. That should not be an optional field. And it's very strange that it is an optional field. But let's say if you end up with reports that don't have an age field filled out, as is the case, because it's not a mandatory field, then these adjudicators should do what you are doing and be reading through the what was written by a doctor or the family. If the age is mentioned in there, and often it is, or you can kind of deduce the approximate age of someone, then they should put it in, and they don't do that.
Yeah, exactly. And see this filter right here, age edit? I'm going to show you this before and after view, where here's the after view where I go into the age edit and say, basically it's asking a question, was the age edited by VAERSaware.com? Yes, it was. So then you say, okay, here it is. I found 561 of these reports were then kind of, were moved into these buckets. And I still found these 38 right here as unknown age. I put it as a age category is unknown, but because they say they don't have the actual age, but it says child or infant or neonate or adolescent. That's written in the summary. So I'll know that, okay, I don't know their exact age, but I do know that they're a child. And I'm going to give you some examples here. Here's an example of a report that just came in. COVID, dead. I'm saying a dead kid because the age is unknown, but when you read the actual report, let alone in the 4 to 6 week adjudication phase, they could ping the submitter and say, hey, what was the vax date, or what was the death date, or what was the lot number? They didn't do any of that. And this is the split type. I hope you could see my little cursor, but the split type.
Yes, yeah, we can see it.
This is the timestamp that tells us that this report, although it was submitted by usually a healthcare professional, and in this case, this type of boilerplate template is telling me that it probably came from a hospital, but it was ultimately submitted into VAERS through the manufacturer, Pfizer. So here's their timestamp. So this not only passed the VAERS adjudicators with like these typos or oversights, it also passed through the manufacturer, that the manufacturer, when they had it, they didn't ask. And I'm saying, if you look closely, yes, they died of heat illness, but they're also saying that the reporter stated 2 kids have died and they claim it was due to heat. Well, I could not find a second kid from Maine that died of a heat illness. This is one of those ones where I call this is like a bundled death, multiple deaths on one report, or that plausible deniability, like, the second report must be in the live system somewhere. But it's not. But regardless of that, I'm just pointing out the initial, nowhere on here does tell me like this is a kid death, but it just says that the reporter stated 2 kids have died. Why would they even state that 2 kids died of heat death if this person also died of heat death? So I'm making an ethical assumption that this report was one of those kids.
And look, Albert, it says life-threatening, no. So it's a death, but it's not life-threatening.
The reporter added that this vaccine affects the nerves, hearts, and lungs. They were running in sports. See that? Read the
Yep.
comment.
Yes.
So I
Yeah.
got a few samples. This one, these 6 or 7 examples are just for the age, but you're going to see a couple of things. This person died in 2011. We are just getting it now as a supposed new one. This is a fetal death. It says it right here in the symptom from 2011 with HPV, not a COVID, but HPV. And it did pass through Merck, the manufacturer, because that was the ultimate people who submitted the report to VAERS based on the timestamp. And this was
Why are we seeing this only now?
yeah, that's my question. Where has this report been? Who's been sitting on this report? Has it been VAERS claims that they received it on August 14th and then they published it or finalized it on 8/29 for it to appear on September the 5th on just a few days ago on Friday. So at face value is okay in the sense that, hey, wait a minute, you got 4 to 6 weeks. Why don't you ping them back and at least get the lot number? Luckily there's a vax date and a death date, but right here I would say this timestamp, which is not really time, I don't know, that they got some other kind of pseudo stamp in here. There's no, when did Merck receive this? I just know Merck had it in their possession and they were the ones who submitted it to VAERS. But yeah, that's
because it's apparently this was a woman. She got the Gardasil vaccine in 2011. Yeah. And she was pregnant and her baby died. It's an intrauterine death. So she didn't die. Her baby died.
right.
Possibly a stillbirth. And shortly after, a few days after vaccination, go further up again to see the day of onset.
Oh,
all the way at the top. It was here 5/20/09 onset and then vaccinated. I don't know. That was the 1st of September. And she was vaccinated on the 24th of May. So that was months later. And then they never reported it until now. Bizarre. I mean, you can just get an idea what a crappy and inconsistent and untrustworthy system this is.
Yeah. Now, just remember that I'm pointing out the hidden ages, the hidden babies. The first one was a hidden COVID baby, but this one is a hidden HPV death baby. Not the mother, not the pregnant mother, but the baby.
Oh, but this is really interesting because this is pre-COVID. And it gives us a little glimpse into how unreliable the data is that we have about the effects of in this case, the Gardasil vaccine, which is a very risky vaccine that has caused lots of harm and also lots of deaths. But just by looking at this, it's just a joke. It's just a complete joke. And who knows how many others there are that were never published. We have absolutely no idea.
Yeah.
But I think you should go back to VAERSaware and show us your most important, whatever you consider the most noteworthy charts and pages that people should know about.
Excellent. Okay. I just want to show you how to drive it so that anybody can come on here and can do a deep dive. But I will just show you that what I do for the last 4 years and how this works is kind of partitioned into 2 sides, the left side and the right side, where I'm trying to say that this was the original event that they gave us. And on the right side is the ethically cleansed that I upcode ethically. I'm saying that there's, in this none of the above, there's uncounted deaths. There's cardiac arrests, there's pulmonary embolisms, and I reclassify them into, like, say, life-threatening or into death. In the same respect, I'm showing this in the center, there's a pie of the gender, female, male, and unknown that they give us.
Yeah, there are way more females than males. What's the, like what,
And
60%?
yeah. And what I'm showing you here is the discrepancy of unknown. They're telling us in all this, there's 729,000 unknown reports, supposedly. But when I go in and look at the summary narrative and say, no, the age is properly documented, I beat it down to only 300,000
Yeah, you mean unknown ages. So
unknown ages.
729,000 unknown ages. And what is this gray sliver there, the gray sliver with 206,000 in it?
Not male, not female, unknown.
Oh, this is unknown.
So that's unknown sex.
Sometimes they don't tell us what the sex is.
Okay.
So all the different ages, the actual ages, there's many in there that I find that like I don't know the age. I just know that it's child. I know that it's infant. I know that it's elderly. I know that it's adult. I know that it's adolescent. So I'll put them, instead of giving them an actual age, I'll just put it in like that, child or infant, pediatric child, pediatric report. The lot numbers right here, I want to tell you that this is, if you click on this picture, you'll launch to how bad is my batch to check your lot numbers. But I also offer a lot lookup, and I will say that mine, God bless Craig Partacooper and Sasha Latapova, who are the co-creators of How Bad Is My Batch. But I also have a lot lookup, and I will say, in all humility, that mine is my interactive dashboard is way better than How Bad Is My Batch, precisely because mine is an interactive dashboard and theirs is more like a VLOOKUP. I can give you details on the actual batch, and I'm just showing, hopefully it'll work here, showing you Melanie's batch number, Moderna 032H20A. It also happens to be the most toxic lot in the VAERS universe. And when I click on that, run through that filter, all these screens have been recalibrated. And this becomes the most toxic lot because of only the 268 reports received, 46. That ratio of deaths to reports makes this the most toxic lot in the universe, in the VAERS universe. And I tell you by ages, where they land, actually show you by now that we've submitted Melanie's. Now we're getting this permanent disabilities. That's the blue right here. My color schema is that like from lightest color to darkest color to blood red is like the more severe and more severe up to death. And I will also show you right here, look at that. Puerto Rico had the most deaths. That's very interesting. Here's Melanie's state, Minnesota. 36 reports were submitted to VAERS as an office visit, 2 as an emergency for Minnesota, 1 as a hospital, and 2 from Minnesota as a permanent disability. One of these is Melanie, but it's this Puerto Rico that tells me that they got the lion's share based on ICANN's FOIA information. We also know that this particular lot was a kind of a very small lot. Only 98,000 doses were shipped all over the place. And then here's the sliding thing I could show you. There's a few more places. Supposedly, this lot even made it to an unknown foreign country.
Wow.
And so yes.
Do you know, so this shows the numbers, the absolute numbers. Do you know the percentage? Do you know how many shots were of this particular lot were administered for each of these places so that you get an idea of the percentage?
No. No, nobody. The closest.
My zip code, Albert figured out my zip code got 100 lots.
Yeah, I can figure out how many were shipped to, and because of ICANN's information, but that's it. After the shipped, we don't know how many went into arms, how many expired on the shelves. So we can only get to the ship data. So with that, doses shipped, these 40-something deaths out of the 200 reports. I mean, this is the most toxic lot in the VAERS universe. There's other lots that have 100 deaths or 150 deaths. Fine, but But per ICANN's FOIA information, some of these lots had 12 million doses in one lot. Just a handful had that many, but after that, it seemed like the sweet spot was like 1,200 to 1.2 million to 1.5 million doses early on. When the demand was much higher, so was the supply, the doses. I give you that just on the first page, but you can actually go into doses and the lag dates between events, between time, like all the different lags, like how many days had passed from the vax date to the submission date, and all those other. Oh, and that was just one of her lot numbers out of the 3 or 4 that she got. But yeah, that was one of the smallest lots. It was like a tester, very toxic, and it went and
my second dose, the lot number was very similar. It was only different by 1 digit, and that's 26.
It was another top toxic lot.
What is the definition of a lot? I mean, I'm surprised that there are such enormous variations in sizes of lots, from 100,000 to 12 million. How does that happen?
I don't know. It's supply and demand. I mean, some of the lots are really small. A lot would be, or a batch number, you could use that name interchangeably. They won't be commingled with, like, if a lot is a child dose, it's not gonna, one lot number can't be a child's dose and an adult dose. That lot number will always be a forever child size dose. It has a national drug code, NDC number, and within an NDC number is like the next higher up in the umbrella. There could be many lot numbers under a national drug code, an NDC number. The NDC number is literally stamped on the outside box of the glass vial that it comes in. And each vial, there's depending, but there could be like 10 doses or sometimes 6 doses or something like that within a vial. But I did want to just show you all the different graphs here on this page. And this was my data service lags. So these numbers here as an example, onset to receive date. I'm looking at this and saying, wow, this person here was a death, and their death happened their onset happened 312 days before the report was received. All the different lags.
So onset means onset of symptoms?
Onset of symptoms. Here's one that I really say, well, death date to receive date. So these ones, 657 days had elapsed from the time the person died to the time the report was received. Wow. Why did it take so long? Well, we could use this filter to filter down and drill down and check out why it took so long. So not to spend a whole lot of time, but just how to use the filters. Uncheck and maybe go like this, hit apply. I'm just looking at 2 reports. I've created this tool, Cornelia, to help me audit. This is why I say, finding a needle in a haystack is child's play. What I can do is find a certain needle within a stack of needles. As an auditor, doing this by profession for a while. But here now I got these 2 reports. Now if I just jump into meta alerts, this is the kind of the magic of VAERS, of VAERSaware.com, is now I pipe the meta alerts into technically called iframing. But here's these 2 reports. If I look at it, Tennessee, now I'm looking at ID number 2716146. So now here it is. I don't have to jump out into meta alerts. And what I'm saying was that from the death date to the published date was like 600 days. So here was 2022 that they died. It sure does look like it took a long time for it to receive, because VAERS claims that they didn't even receive it until more than a year later. You see that?
Interesting. Yes. Yes.
And
So,
now when was it published? We'd have to go and click on history to look at that. But I just want to see right here, very simple breakthrough. See, this is very Spartan. This tells me that I don't know who would a hospital submit it this way? A skilled nursing facility submit it this way? It doesn't say submitted by a contactable physician. It definitely was not submitted by the manufacturer. That's why it's blank right here. It's split type.
why does it on all these reports that I've seen so far, it always says in death cases, life-threatening ? No, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, they
No.
died, so it was life-threatening.
Yeah. But anyway, so clicking on history, now we're going to jump out. It launches to the actual, you can authenticate it actually at MedAlerts. And I know it's a little small. Let me make it bigger. But that's just so I can see this appeared. So literally right here. Oh, and this is one of those Melanie, the most toxic lot in the world.
That's my lot.
And we were just, look at how long it took for them. This was held up somewhere in the submission. Somebody submitted this super late. I know looking at these, Tennessee sends a lot of them that are like this. I think it's coming from some kind of skilled nursing facility or hospital or a health department or something like to that effect. Regardless of that, I'm just showing you the lag time, the delay. Purposely, this could be what I call throttling, a purposeful delay of publishing reports. Very nefarious.
This is like a year and a half, right? This is like a year and a half later that they did that. So yeah, this is way. So this person died on the 14th of February 2022, and then this report first appeared on the 24th of November 2023. And what's also weird is that it says, okay, there's a date for vaccinated, there's a date for onset, which happened 12 days after vaccination, so onset of symptoms, and then the report was entered late, as I just said, November 2023, but submitted, it's all zeros. There's no date in submitted. That's not the first time I've seen this.
Well, yeah. This is kind of the same thing. Entered, you can use interchangeably with received. That is the received date that VAERS received it.
Can I just say that his onset date, February 2022, that was part of the worst time of my life. And I didn't even know that I was vaccine injured. I would take another dose in May of 2022. And I was so sick. This guy took the same batch I did, you guys. This is sad. And he's dead.
Right. And it was not life-threatening. He's dead, but it was not life-threatening. What a joke. Okay.
So
okay.
I think if you don't mind, that's probably about, I can show you so much more. The dashboard is so complete, and not to, I almost feel bad. I don't want to dismiss or discredit what I said earlier about howbadismybatch.com. I think you should use both of ours as a supplement, mine as a supplement to How Bad Is My Batch. But I will just let you know that you could see more detail in mine, and I ethically fix typos in the lot number. So most of the time I show you more adverse events per batch because I'm fixing typos. And then when you do, you actually see more deaths and more emergencies and hospital visits and everything. So I just say use mine as a supplement to How Bad Is My Batch. But I only showed you half the dashboard. I don't want to, the most important thing was to see the filter to do it yourselves. And I could show the throttling, the purposeful delay of publishing reports. The Guinness Book of World Record now is something like 950 days from receipt to publication. So by VAERS' own timestamps, you could see that they're purposefully delaying the publication of reports. Other times it's not so visible. It's like the manufacturer is sitting on them possibly, but the plausible deniability is there. And I think they hide behind that because, in some court somewhere, the manufacturer can say, well, Your Honor, we didn't receive this. We didn't find out about this death.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't receive information about it till 2 years later. And there's many reports like that in VAERS that have been years and years that we just find out about it. And who's sitting on it, is...
Well, they did a fine job. They did a fine job. They did a fine job. There was nothing there. Nobody reached out to me. It's a complete failure. The faux karma vigilant. I don't know how you say that. My case is the perfect example of a complete failure of the tracking and vaccine injury system. Complete failure.
Right. Well, it seems that's right, Melanie. And it seems to me that this system really serves two functions. One is to create the illusion to the patients that there is and to the doctors as well, that there is a system that will record vaccine injuries and vaccine deaths. And the second purpose is to hide the true extent of the harm and the death of these vaccines. And they're very successful at doing that. And that's the only explanation I can find to build a system that is so dysfunctional. Now, the question is, it's just like window dressing. Okay, here we go. If something happens, do not worry. We are recording everything so that we get a signal. But then they do everything to suppress the signals. And the signals are also so misleading as Albert has shown. They have a lot of data, but it's extremely cumbersome and time consuming to dig into it. And nobody does it. None of these adjudicators does what Albert has been doing, because he has been parsing the way, if I understand it correctly, you get at all that information is by reading painstakingly every single report and reading what has been written and then filling in the data. The adjudicators are not doing it. So there's no interest in taking the data that there is and getting all the information out of it. They're not interested in that. So in other words, they don't want to show the true extent of the harm. Clearly, you cannot come to any other conclusion. And that is an exercise in misleading people about the harms of these products. There have to be repercussions. People have to be held responsible at the CDC and the FDA, who are the responsible agencies for this kind of system that has been quite successful actually at hiding the extent of the harms that vaccines are doing. And Albert, my question to you now is, so Robert Kennedy is now Secretary of HHS. He is very well aware of the shortcomings, of the deliberate shortcomings of the system. What do you think will happen to the system, and what do you think should happen to the system?
Well, thank you for that question. And yes, Bobby, more than most, knows exactly what's going on. Children's Health Defense has quoted me almost 36 times. And even this last one, when you study this last article, what I'm saying is that there's 3 times the amount of dead kids, if not for the unknown ages, not the age not being populated. I mean, that by itself, when Bobby kind of wraps up that whole thing and says that the VAERS system is broken, the VAERS system is a good system and can be a great system. It's a form filler at its core. The arbitrary 20 minutes that it takes before it cuts you off should be taken. There's things that you could do to instantly make it a much better system. Take off that arbitrary time limit of 20 minutes, but then have like an ethical pharmacovigilance system. I just think the word pharmacovigilance just implies a sense of ethics, and the exact opposite is happening. They're using the 4 to 6 week adjudication window to obfuscate and manipulate dynamically, probably using AI to strip out. That's what I'm saying. Think that they are certain age fields were populated. And then in the adjudication, they disappeared. They were scrubbed, just like the state location. 32% of all the domestic death reports have an unknown state.
Say that again. Cut out. 32% of what?
Of the death reports in the United States. 32% don't. They're telling us we don't know what state it came from, unknown state. It's like,
Wow.
what is is this a courier pigeon delivering these reports? Are you kidding me? You can't tell us where it came from?
Albert, do you think somehow maybe someone forgot about Puerto Rico and they figured out how to cleanse the whole system so that it doesn't look like a big dump of death anywhere, but you caught Puerto Rico? You think maybe they screwed that up somewhere, somehow?
You know, I think I think they came from Puerto Rico. It's the reports that have an unknown state are the ones that I'm questioning. Like, why does a full third of all the death reports have an unknown state?
Right, because they would have been Minnesota, Iowa, and Nebraska. You know what I mean? And then that would have been a big red flag. But
the state field, that's not a mandatory field though, right? Where you can leave that empty.
Yeah, well, I mean, none of the fields are mandatory to be completely honest, but they do ask for addresses like 5 or 6 times. They ask like the submitter, what's your address? Are you is the submitter the actual patient? Yes or no? And if no, oh, how are you related to the patient? Oh,
well,
what's your address?
It would be easy to figure out because if you're the adjudicator, all you have to do is see where they've been health care.
When you click hospitalization or emergency, they ask you, what's the hospital name? What's the attending physician name and address and phone number and fax number? So yeah, I mean, it's not mandatory, but so many, come on. I mean, they're literally stripping the state.
That's a ridiculous system
out.
that doesn't have the most important. Right, and it's not a serious system that doesn't ask for the most important data points. Because as you just said, almost everything, not everything, but almost everything, almost all the data points are optional fields. So you can submit reports that are complete crap. Nothing stops you from doing that, and you end up with crappy data. But that's by design. That's by design. Nobody in his right mind would design a form like that. It doesn't make any sense.
That's a left talking point too. I just read some comments that refer to the fact that VAERS is just a bunch of crap and fake submissions. Anyway, I read that.
Well, I mean, it's not the system. It's the administrators administrating the system. There's a nefarious element inside that are doing that. And what is the adjudication phase even for? If you're spitting out these reports with no vax date, no lot numbers, no death date, no age. It's like, in theory, on paper, on the standard operating procedures, you're supposed to ping back the submitter with the request for additional information. And you have 4 to 6 weeks, the adjudicators, to keep track of that and keep populating the report in that window of time and then publish it. So it's not being, like an untimely filing and publication. Yet they publish claims and reports entirely too fast, Hey, why don't you hold on to it for another week or two and get the information? Why is it received and then published like 3 days later and all this information's missing? So on one end of the spectrum, they are publishing entirely too fast. On the other end of the spectrum, they're holding on to reports as much as 900 days, and then it comes out and it's just as bad, is missing just as much information as the report that was finalized in 3 days. It's like, you can't have it both ways. This is a shitty job that they're doing. And then in addition to that, they are the ones manipulating the data and obfuscating the data. That's what I'm saying. Bobby knows it, with the disappeared report. I'm thinking that he's holding the ace card in his sleeve, waiting for the right time to really go for the jugular and say, it's not the system, it's the administrators in the system that are doing it. This AI in real time. I'm not AI, but I'm running circles around it. And I'm just one person here in Silicon Valley with, I got no special skills, just experience of being a claims auditor. That I got, but this AI stuff and this real time is a bunch of bullshit. That it's not that. It's the nefarious administrators inside that are doing it.
Right.
So,
And to close off, I just want to point out that this VAERS system was created in 1990. So that is 35 years ago.
Yeah.
It was created 4 years after the childhood what is it called? The National Childhood Vaccination Act was passed, that gave indemnification to the big pharma industry, for vaccines. So 4 years after that, they created a system that was almost certainly designed in order not to provide real, meaningful safety signals, but to do just the opposite, namely to make it impossible to get real safety signals. And we have been living with the system for 35 years, and almost nobody, before COVID, there were very, very few people who were even aware of the fact that the system existed. And also, even way fewer people knew about the deficiencies of the system and of the real true purpose of the system. And now, I think after 35 years, it is high time. It's astounding that the system has been around for such a long time, and that it has been that its function really was to cover up the enormous extent of vaccine injuries. And the time has now, it looks like to me, the time has come for a reckoning, not just with VAERS, but a reckoning for what has been happening. And VAERS is just a little part of it. So I want to thank you very, very much. And also, Albert, your work is absolutely amazing. And you have been able to, you really gave us an idea of the amount of time and work and thought that you had to put into this to make more sense out of the data. And I want to thank you for that.
Thank you. It's an honor. It's a pleasure. And I got plenty of gas in the gas tank, and I'm not quitting until somebody gives me a better interactive dashboard. It's something that the CDC should have done a long time ago, because a part of that 1986 Vaccine Act in the pharmacovigilance is to make vaccines safer, make the whole pharmacovigilance system safer, which includes that cheesy, outdated, antiquated wonder data dump thing. That part's cool, but the interactive dashboard is like what a color TV is to black and white, non-talkie movies way back when. They should have done this. Interactive dashboards have been around for 20 years. So yeah, they're 20 years late, but hopefully Bobby, and with an interactive dashboard with how I'm doing it, which is nothing special here in Silicon Valley. It's nothing special. I'm not special, but with an interactive dashboard to drill, it just kind of pulls the curtain back by all these cheesy little Vegas card tricks that the VAERS has been living off of. The administrators within VAERS have been living off of for this whole time. That's why they don't want to make a real interactive dashboard.
Well, again, thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Albert. Thank you for exposing them. And